Reveille, donks.
Look at us now, tip to tip. This is our life. This is our passion. That's the spirit we bring to this show.
I'm Luke Thomas.
I'm Brian Campbell.
This is Morning Kombat.
Hey, are we live? Can you hear me?
We did it. Let's see if this works.
We are here. Hello, everybody. It is the 21st of June, 2024, and we're doing this for fucking free. So welcome, everyone. It's a special edition of Friday's MK. Now, it's not a numbered episode because we haven't formally, fully relaunched Friday, but we thought, BC, we can't leave these people hanging. There's too much going on. We got to do this the right way. Right? Here we are.
Yeah, we had to give back. Sometimes you got to close your eyes and stick your hand in the bag and feel around in there a little bit. And, I don't know what that has to do with giving back, but it's pretty, an awkward visualization just the same,
How are you doing, BC? How are things?
I was actually, juvenilely excited for today's episode because it has been a while since we plugged in from home and, filled the coffee cups, aligned the cameras, showed off the artwork that speaks of the insides of our heart, Luke. You know what I mean? I don't really know what's going on here. Do you?
No, I have no clue.
I
don't have the faintest idea.
Yeah.
We are self-producing today. That's what we are doing. I just want to be very clear with the audience. We are self-producing with the audience. We are self-producing. Oh, by the way, how about this? Ready? Look at that. Huh?
Wow.
LT,
Self-made
BC.
millionaires.
BC.
Now we got this could be a volatile episode, Luke, for two reasons. One, it was leg day this morning, so as I always tell my family, I'm not responsible for anything I say or do the rest of the day. But two, Luke, when you have to juggle the producing, directing, and co-hosting, you can get a little itchy up in the crotch. You're going to be all right today up in the to fly this plane home, Sully style?
Probably not. It'll probably be a disaster, but I'm going to do my best. So let's remind everyone, you can follow us on all the socials right there. Morning Kombat is everywhere on Insta. It's on TikTok. It's on Twitter. It's in all kinds of fun places. And of course, BC, you got to let folks know about the merch. What's going on with the merch, BC?
Well, you said MK is everywhere. And of course, what Sarah Michelle Gellar said in Cruel Intentions is probably everyone's dream. And I have that same dream for MK. You know what I mean? Luke, put it everywhere, right? Anywhere you want, in fact. Am I still talking? Is this out loud? Here's the deal, though. If you want to wear this fantastic merch that you got right on me right here. Oh, wow. Look at that. That's great. How about what Luke's wearing? Head on over to morningkombat.store right now. RJ Dunkel Gangbang is on the other end there. He will fulfill your orders. He will wash his hands beforehand. That is part of our deal with him after what happened last year, Luke, right? Wow. Yeah. Seriously, though.
We got, we need to get on the show. Have you seen the Hawk Tua viral girl? Have you seen her?
Yes, I have. That one, yeah, I have seen that, Luke. Yeah.
Spit on that thing. I was like,
yeah.
She's going to be somebody's very, very happy wife. I really can tell.
Yeah, that's the opposite of a Southern Belle, right, Luke?
Yeah, if I ever saw Tukey doing something like that, I'd be distraught. But for the purposes of this show, it's hilarious to me. You know what I'm saying?
Quickly on the merch, though, you want 10% off? You want a discount? What, okay, you got it. How about use our code LIVE10 over there at morningkombat.store? Look, someday that code will have an expiration date. We just haven't reached that day yet.
We haven't got there yet. So it'll be a bit of an abbreviated episode today. We're not going to go like a full 2 hours. We're going to try and keep this one a little bit short. Ryan Garcia news we have to get to. Also, there's breaking news about UFC 303, but Ryan Garcia news. We'll talk about some of Dana White's comments on the Club Shay Shay podcast, as well as, hey, UFC Saudi Arabia is tomorrow. And BC, I have to say, a surprise. I don't know how surprising it is, but there's just not nearly as much enthusiasm for this card as I would have imagined. Obviously, losing Khamzat is devastating for the card, but I don't know. Are you a little surprised at the enthusiasm?
I'm not surprised by it because, you're shuffling up the lineup, and Khamzat, like you mentioned, there was so much intrigue tied into that of him finally putting it back, putting it on the line and taking that next monster step, which would be directly into title contention if he had gotten a win here. And now he's not there. I think with what we've expected of late with Saudi Arabia on the boxing side, maybe it just feels a little underwhelming. But with that said, there's a lot of weirdness on this card that I really like. Action potential, so some kind of weird matchups that maybe aren't front page material, but have got me fired up for a Saturday afternoon. So I'm excited. Do you feel, if I could talk turkey with you, Do you feel like Sir Al-Sheikh, his amazingness is okay with how this card has played out, Luke?
Probably not. I mean, given the specter and the grandiosity of what they've pulled off in boxing, this is a pretty clear step down. Again, heavily influenced by the fact that Khamzat Chimaev is now ill and out, and I think that really has dampened enthusiasm, and both for his career and everybody else. Someone asked me yesterday, BC, is Khamzat becoming the greatest what if in MMA history? And we can't really answer that yet because we don't really know what's going to be next. But he's headed towards that territory at warp fucking speed. So
yeah,
see.
Do you have any concerns given the serious nature of how much Chechen politics spill into Chechen pro sports? That's similar to horse racing when a championship horse has injured itself and lost its, ability to be itself, Luke, that they'll old yeller the shit out of that guy, like around the corner from the track that he just fell on. There's no scares for Khamzat.
So I got asked that question yesterday, and there actually was a former UFC fighter that is widely believed to have been executed when he left UFC, and then years later ended up working with
Can you say the
Kadyrov.
name?
I'm going to mispronounce it. Let me get it for you. Yes, I can say it because people were emailing me about it. Because someone's like, "Oh, is Chimaev going to come up missing?" And I'm like, "I don't think he's going to come up missing." And then when folks were asking me,
you're like, "I don't think they'll find the pieces at all." That's what Luke basically just said.
Kareem Zidane has talked about Abdul Karim Edilov, and Edilov I think fought once or twice for UFC, nothing too spectacular. And then he went missing. But it's like there's a big difference between a guy like that and then a guy like Khamzat, who is incredibly visible, lives in the UAE, which doesn't necessarily remove him from all danger, but it's not. For someone, I'm not saying that he wouldn't be under pressure or that his family wouldn't be under pressure, but like he's just going to go up, he's just going to show up in floating in a river somewhere. I don't buy that.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see.
Would you call Under Pressure the collab between Queen and David Bowie, like maybe the greatest collab in popular music history?
Ding, 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 diddy, ding, ding. That's not the same as ding, 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 diddy, ding, ding.
Not the same at all.
Not the same. All right. Let's do this. We're going to have a real informal kind of fun MK today. I called it uncensored because...
What you call it? Uncensored? I'm like, do I have to take my thing out, Luke? Is this what you're offering the audience?
Listen, we can do whatever we want. I mean, there's a DraftKings logo. Let me see. Right here, there's a DraftKings logo at the top of that side. But this ain't a DraftKings episode. This is just a guerrilla episode. We can just do whatever the fuck we want. So, BC, let's roll out the pornography and have a great time. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Hey, Rocco, get up in the bullpen, all right? Because I already am. Yeah. Hey, wow.
Very quickly, last thing before we get to the topics, your weekend plans. What are, besides watching fights, obviously?
I'm definitely going to watch fights and, maybe go to the lake, Luke. You know what I mean? It'll be a real nice, wholesome family weekend. I've been traveling a lot. It takes a lot out of you, Luke, as you always say, right? If I'm gonna slowly kill myself and allow this, my body and my soul to just erode over time by doing this, I might as well. So yeah, you got to have fun on the other end. So I'm not ashamed that I'm going on vacation in August, and I'm not ashamed that I'm going to be at the lake this weekend in between covering fights, Luke. You got to live on the outside too.
You're going to be high as shit at the lake?
No, I wouldn't put that kind of unnecessary pressure into the situation, Luke, or at least admit it publicly. I mean, what are you trying to say right now, right? Yeah.
By the way, I want to get the show started, but can you tell the folks about the gravity bong that you sent you that you refused to give to me, even though you won't use it?
Well, let's get it into your hands first, Luke. Okay, then you can provide an ultimate breakdown of what looks to be, the ultimate warrior of peace pipes, Luke. There's not, peace sells, Luke, but who's buying? Because this is a war pipe, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Well, as long as it's not the Chris Benoit of gravity bongs, I'm okay. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think I've ever heard that statement said before. That's incredible.
I just want to get high without the murder-suicide. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
All right, BC, let's get this started here very quickly. I'm just going to we got some clips we're going to play from the Club Shay Shay thing, but very quickly, Carlos Ulberg is out of his fight with Anthony Smith. So it was originally Jamal Hill and Roundtree. Roundtree's out. Then Ulberg fills in. Then Jamal is out and Smith fills in. Now Ulberger's out and it's Smith versus Roman Dolidze for UFC 303. That does kind of dampen my enthusiasm. I don't think it's a bad fight, but you've got a guy who's basically a middleweight coming up to 205 because it's short notice. Do you like the fight? How do you feel about it?
I mean, I don't hate it. It's not much. It's not great. It's not certainly, well, it's no longer the co-main event, but it still was in a featured location.
Yeah.
And you want to fight in that situation to tell you a lot about who's coming or going toward the top end of the division. I guess to some degree you could get that, especially if Dolidze, as the younger, fresher fighter, goes over, or is the storyline the opposite about the old veteran kind of holding serve. But Luke, I'm not going to accuse a friend of the program, Anthony Smith, of this, but given he did put out comments saying, he feels like a win here, like he's ready for the title. You know what I mean? He'll tell you how John Jones is not as great as everyone thinks he is. And, maybe the same with Poatan. There's no like Scream 2 storyline here where Anthony Smith is like single-handedly poisoning the division one by one. So then they're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe the main event just fell apart again. But guess what? Who's coming through that door? Anthony Smith to save the day, right? Because he could have stolen the title by DQ from John, but he did MMA a solid in there. But maybe this is like a deep-rooted heel turn, kind of like, spoiler alert, in Scream 2, when it turned out it was the aunt from Roseanne that was the villain the whole time. Like, didn't see that one coming. You know what I mean? Tremendous swerve right there. Any chance that he's sick of the home invasion jokes and really just turn the tide back at MMA in general here?
I don't know. First of all, I've never seen any of the Scream movies. Can you believe that? I've never seen them. Are you drinking AG1 even though it's not a sponsor anymore and also probably not that great?
Well, I have an incredible backlog of product that my wife was basically like, use it or lose it, because our kitchen will no longer support the backlog. You know what I'm saying, Luke?
Okay.
Your ass has said that to your body a few times as well.
Backlog is rarely my issue anymore. Now it's just more like explosion. I had 2 ass explosions this morning. But getting to the Anthony Smith thing,
that's neither here nor there, apparently, Luke. Let's keep going. Yeah,
I don't have a strong feeling about it one way or the other. The UFC at this point is just trying to keep this shit on the tracks, and so you just kind of have to take what you get at this point. So it's fine. I'm glad they were able to find a replacement. I don't have strong feelings about it one way or the other, but I just wanted to get your reaction to that. All right, first, let's talk about Ryan Garcia. So Ryan Garcia reached a settlement yesterday with the New York State Athletic Commission, and it goes as follows. The win over Devin Haney is turned into a no contest. That's the first thing. Secondly, he has to return $1.1 million of his purse to Golden Boy. Now, some of that will go to Haney, but it's not clear how much, so we'll have to see. He's fined $10,000, which is the max amount that you can get for an infraction in that state, and he is suspended 1 year retroactive to the 20th of April. So April 20th, 2025, Ryan will be eligible to compete again. Folks often ask, hey, couldn't he just go to Dubai and take a fight? Yes, technically he could, but then he would not be able to fight ever again in the United States. If you go and you flout that kind of thing from a commission like that, you'll never be licensed to compete in the United States ever again. So no, he can't really do that. He'll basically be on ice for about a year. Also, as a reminder, you'll recall from the weight miss that Garcia had to pay Haney about $600,000 or so. So Ryan has had to give to either Haney or Golden Boy or both $1.8 million as a consequence of all of his fuck-ups through the course of this event. BC, that's what happened yesterday. Your reaction is what?
Well, to sprinkle a little more potential fallout trouble on there for Ryan is the fact that Devin Haney in the last 24 hours has gone on social media and said he will follow through with the civil lawsuit against Ryan for taking the drug use. And his real focus is going to be the loss of money, because I think you saw that purse bid situation where Devin's trying to be a free agent. Eddie Hearn didn't take part in the Sandy Martin title defense purse bid. So Top Rank won the bid for a very small bid. It kind of makes Haney look bad. Now Haney's saying he's going to sit out a year and wait for Ryan, sue him, and then rematch him when he becomes eligible again. Okay. So that's just more potential stuff on top of it. My immediate reaction though to Ryan is I'm glad at least they slapped the wrist. It wasn't more than a slap, but I'm glad it wasn't nothing, because we've seen in this situation before other fighters get a 6-month ban, which is nothing in boxing. When most big name fighters are only going to fight twice a year anyway, then a 6-month ban is nothing. And Luke, you can make the same argument that because star fighters today tend to not fight above twice a year, that even a 1-year punishment is only a slap on the wrist. But you do have to take into account the fines that will add up, like you mentioned, the multi-million dollars that this will cost him. And ultimately, Luke, I think the biggest test will be, where's his life going to be 1 year from now when it is time to return to the ring? I wonder, you know what I mean? I say this as the ultimate armchair psychologist quarterback here, which is what we're tasked to do, especially where you got a guy like Ryan who's actively trying to be the Joker of boxing. He's always trying to leave you in a spot where you're not sure what's real, what isn't, what are his motivations. Well, sometimes having at least that core backbone of a fight plan, of a programmed, well, I got training camp coming up, and then I got it. Sometimes that can keep a fighter whose life is getting loose in the fourth turn, so to speak, can keep them grounded to some degree. Without that grounding, not just the finances coming in, but without that grounding of something that is forcing him to be disciplined for at least part of the day or part of the journey, I do wonder where his personal life goes this year, especially with the illness to his mother, which, you know, no one wishes that upon anyone. And the fact that he has just gone full on toxic lately. It does seem to be like he has this lust for stardom that he can never quench. Luke, that could lead to trouble when it's idle hands time and you can't do the only thing that you know how to do, right? Which is be that boxer, be that fighter. We can justify your behavior to a certain degree when you're getting in the ring and you're winning. But when you're inactive, when you're sitting out, what's that going to do to the mental psyche? I fear for the kid, Luke. I don't wish bad on Ryan Garcia as much as I've been turned off beyond belief from the last couple months, but I'm questioning that above all.
Let me add a little fuel to the fire. This comes from Dan Raphael yesterday. Quote, the New York Commission also took its own urine samples. Remember, the samples that he tested positive for came from VADA collected samples, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Agency. But this is different. The New York Commission also took its own urine samples from the fighters and had them tested under its usual standards. But it's less expensive and less complete protocol, did not include any tests for ostarine and many other substances. However, once Garcia's positive VADA tests were returned, the commission had a sample it collected from Garcia unrelated to the sample provided to VADA, and they tested it for ostarine, and it came up positive as well. That means Garcia had at least one additional positive drug test than was previously disclosed. Sources with knowledge of the additional test told Dan Raphael yesterday. So that's another thing to consider here as well.
Can I ask you something off of that, Luke?
Yeah.
When you look back, I know you can always side with, hey, everyone's using in reality. Maybe he just messed up and got caught. Do you think he just messed up and got caught with the protocol? Or do you think he literally said, fuck it, not only do I want every advantage, but like, I don't even care what happens to me if I get caught, because I'm just going to play the Trump routine. I'm just going to play the ultimate, like, they're lying, I've been framed. And that's what he's been playing. Is it a calculated fail? How do you look at what really happened here?
As we've all seen in the cases of, I mean, Pickett, D-Rod is competing this weekend. He got hemmed up in this. Tom Lawler, Sean O'Malley, so many others. Ostarine contamination is real. We've seen it a million times. And when it came out that he did not test positive, remember there was a moment there where they weren't sure if he had tested positive for an anabolic steroid, and then subsequent testing showed he did not. So he was exonerated for there, and it was just ostarine. I was like, well, this guy is caught up again in the bullshit of strict liability. Strict liability being this idea that whatever's in your body, you're responsible for. It doesn't matter how it got there. And of course, we know that's not really a tenable method by which to evaluate anything anymore when water can contaminate it. And folks are like, oh, how often does that happen? This has happened a number of times. We know about it. Prescribed medicine can have it. Food can have it. And so if the general way in which you live can cause contamination, then you have to be much more forgiving. And so if it had been just that, I really wouldn't have cared. And yeah, everyone thinks that, like, I think using PEDs all the time is good. That's really not my view. My view is that we don't have a sane drug policy, and so we get to these weird territories of things. But I've always said I like VADA because you choose to sign up for it. It's in the name, voluntary.
By the way, it's cheaper than USADA, than the other ones that have been historically been available. So that's always the argument against people who you feel like are drug testing but still dirty and covering it up. It's like VADA's cheaper and it tests for more. So if you're avoiding it, it says something about you.
Right. And so this is my point. Like, if guys are, and I know there's sometimes that because it's certain sanctioning bodies can make it so that if the title has to be on the line, they have to do VADA. But at the end of the day, boxers have incredible amount of leverage and control over their careers. If you sign up for it, of your own accord, I have no sympathy at all for you. And the thing that I really go back to is Ryan blamed that it was this contaminated supplement that he had. And then the people who, we've talked about this, the people who manufacture that supplement went back and tested the batch from which his stuff came from, and they can't find any Austrian contamination in there at all. So what happened? We can only guess. My best guess, he definitely missed weight at 3 pounds over on purpose. Don't forget that. And my guess is he probably did use. Again, I don't know that. I cannot declare that to you. We're only just speculating, but the evidence seems to me to lean in that direction more than just pure contamination. So for that kind of a reason, him having to hand back 1.8 million, lose basically a very good win in terms of what the tape showed anyway, and then to get suspended, he probably deserves it, dude. I don't know what else to say. Like you fostered this environment that ended up completely. He did all the fucking around and everyone was applauding and how great it was. Well, welcome to the phase of finding out. Yeah, I don't have a lot of sympathy for him. I don't.
No, I'm with you on that. I don't have any sympathy at all. I'm just happy again that at least it's something to work with as a punishment. It's not a lot. I mean, but I don't necessarily agree with Haney coming out and saying, I think he should have been banned for life. Luke, there is a second life for abusers in this space when you sort of just embrace being the villain. Look at Antonio Margarito with the hand wrap controversy. It's not like that stopped him from getting big fights, the rest of his career.
Right.
So Ryan's willingness to play the Joker here and just in every situation be like, I'm the victim. I'm not I'm not the bad guy. I'm the victim. It's going to catch up with him legally. But do you think anyone actually cares because of how hard he's actually trying to play the villain? Do you think anyone actually looks at him like, if this happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, every time Ryan Garcia's name would be mentioned, you'd be like steroid abuser. Now I feel like people are just, okay, let's get through the suspension because I just want to see him fight again.
Well, again, there is some, I guess, plausible deniability here. I don't think it's very strong, but there's some. I am not one of these people who thinks he should be banned like 2 to 4 years or like permanently. I don't really believe that at all. So the 1-year suspension, I'm actually okay with. And to your point about like, will this stain him permanently? To an extent, yes. But to your point, like, what's one of the biggest fights you can make in boxing right now? No bullshit. It's Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia 2. And I suspect that they probably will make that on the other end. And so, and I have
is that bigger than Tank Ryan too, commercially, because of the controversy?
It might be. It might be. I mean, Tank's last pay-per-view did not do very well, and which is a separate conversation. But what I'm trying to make is they're going to make their money back on that times 1,000. The thing I thought that was kind of interesting that you kind of alluded to it earlier, Devin Haney telling Dan Rafael that, hey, look at how Matchroom. So folks don't understand what purse bidding is. The way to understand it, and BC, if I get any part of this wrong, please correct me. But right now, Devin Haney is not signed to Matchroom. He had been previously, but he is not signed to Matchroom at the moment. And he had kind of had a good relationship with them, but he's not signed to him. And so there's this fight that came up. It was mandatory for Sandor Martin to fight Devin Haney. And if he's not signed to any kind of promoter, they can just put a purse bid up, and then promoters can bid to see who wants to get it. And
it's a blind bid. You get one bid. Yeah. It's a blind bid, and whoever offers the most wins.
Right. Only top-ranked bid. That's Bob Arum's organization on ESPN. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom didn't even bother bidding. And what Devin Haney is arguing is well, all of the fallout and how bad everything went for me from Garcia, that actually affected why he didn't want to ultimately bid on this fight, which I'm not saying is totally untrue, but it's going to be a very difficult argument, I think, to make in court, which is any kind of part of civil lawsuit he might have. That's the connection that he's making there. I'd be curious to see how that goes. I'm skeptical that goes anywhere, but it's something that would be worth paying attention to.
Stay here quickly on Haney in that regard, because I think you could just as easily argue back at him like, look, you weren't a huge commercial draw outside of the times that you fought super big names. If you're not going to give Eddie and Matchroom Sport consistent ink, if you're not going to, give them the next couple fights and you're going to try to piecemeal, which he's done brilliantly up to his career, but there's a gamble when you go solo, especially when you're young, right? It's one thing to do it when you're Miguel Cotto at age 34 or Canelo right now, and you can just kind of go to the highest bidder, go one fight over here, 2 fights over there. But I don't begrudge Eddie for saying, okay, if this, let's team up. And if you team up with me, I'll pay for that. And that's the benefit of being with an elite promoter, because they would have just paid that purse, but they would have paid $4 or $5 million, whatever, and not thought twice. Take an L for that fight against Martin if you're Matchroom, but then you're getting the rematch against Ryan around that corner, and you're going to cash in and make it worth it. So it's some of like him being caught in the business. But do you think overall, I feel like everyone has turned on Haney since this loss, everyone. And even with Ryan getting caught guilty, I don't see people going back and like exonerating Haney now. I feel like people hate the way that Haney has responded to this.
His Twitter mentions are a fucking graveyard every time he tweets.
He's threatening retirements. He's threatening that he'll sit out till Ryan gets back. What would you advise Team Haney in terms of how to handle this PR shitstorm right now?
I'd drop any lawsuit. I don't think it's a good use of their time. I don't know how much they're really going to be getting out of it. The argument is pretty tenuous. And if I was him, and this would be what I would say anyway, given how badly it went on, again, whether you think Ryan was on something or not, whether you think the weight miss contributed significantly or not, it was a bad beating. So no matter what, I would like to see Devin Haney just take some time away. Go chill. You've got good money. You've made a bunch of money. Go enjoy it, and then come back. If it's the next fight with Ryan, if it's a tune-up, fine. Just walk away a little bit, because constantly, sticking the hornet's nest of social media is not winning him fans under any stretch of the imagination. So,
dude, Chase Roley. That's Roley's the new Mayorga. He's the ultimate get well fight, because it's a get well fight, but it's also a potential pay-per-view.
Dude, nobody loves. I don't think Roley's parents love him as much as you love him.
I will say, Roley has now, in back-to-back Vegas trips, interrupted what he was doing with large groups of people to be like, yo, 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 and give me like a shout out, Luke. I think Real is in the process of recognizing Real right now, and I couldn't be more delighted, to be very fair with you.
You gonna blow him or what?
Well, look, I can be platonic friends with Brett Okamoto. I've proved this over many years. All right. We don't always have to go this way, Luke. Okay.
All right. Let's talk about something else. Did you see Dana White on the Club Shay Shay podcast, BC? Did you see it?
So what is the bar here? Because the interview that Shannon Sharpe did with, what was the guy who shit on every person alive in the interview?
Oh, Cat Williams.
Cat Williams. That did what, like 32 million views in like a week? I don't even know what it's up to now. 5 trillion. Will the Dana White one do monster traffic, you think?
Not like that. I mean, obviously, Club Shay Shay is a huge podcast, so it will do really well, but I don't think it will do like that. I don't imagine. I mean, that was so inflammatory, and he shot, Cat Williams did, so many arrows at so many big name figures. It was huge. It was like a phenomenon. This is just Dana White, a big name on a big name podcast, and it will do fine, but I don't think it'll be remarkable numbers. So he talked about any number of different things, some of which I'm actually pretty excited to see. So let's start with the positive part, BC. We only have, I think, what do I have here? I have basically 3 clips that we can play. Let's get to the first one of these, which is actually pretty good. Namely, him talking about the Sphere. You and I went to the Sphere when we were in Vegas, and we have raved about it since. Here's what Dana White had to say to Shannon Sharpe about that upcoming Sphere show in the fall.
And I'm already $16 million into this thing. This will never be done again. This will never be replicated. Anybody who comes in after me at the Sphere is fucked. Fucked.
Have you already got a card in mind?
We're working on it, and we're tweaking it every day. And yeah,
John,
the answer is yes.
Ooh, I can just imagine. I'm sure everybody wants to be on that card.
Everybody should want to be on that card. Believe me when I tell you. Everybody was all fired up about UFC 300. This thing is going to be, and again, if you are Mexican and you are on this, it's going to be like nothing anybody's ever seen before.
Right.
I tell you what, we criticize the UFC a lot on here, and obviously, BC, we don't know what they have planned, but that was as close to a religious experience as I have had in some time at the Sphere. So what I'm going to say is we shall see what the UFC
that because
does.
Okil dosed us with love, Luke?
Yes. Could be because we may have had illicit drugs in our tummy. I don't know. But I'm going to say this, BC. I am at least, certainly I'm very curious to see. But I'll say this. If they pull off what we have seen is at least possible in the Sphere, this will go down as one of the coolest, most interesting, unique shows that has ever taken place in combat sports. And let me say one more thing, BC. we often talk about how the pageantry in MMA is missing with UFC because they like a little bit more. They like sleek, they like modern, but they like a little bit more cookie cutter. You know, they don't allow guys to walk out with big costumes or do dance numbers.
Well,
And
they're
if
not
you
willing
miss,
to do stadiums. They're not willing
and
to
also
bring
that,
in.
Hold on. If you missed Pride and you missed all of the pageantry that they would put into things, you really have no idea about what MMA shows used to, or at least could look like. BC, do you share, again, we don't know how it's going to look, but do you agree that the possibility here, given the money, the resources, and the effort that the UFC is putting in, they could produce something truly historic here?
Oh, no, there's no question about that at all. And there's a part of me that loves to see hungry Dana again chasing after something worthwhile, taking the same spirit that he's putting currently into Power Slap, into killing on us, the media, and into rolling craps for high dollars with young influencers. I'd love to see that spirit back into being a Captain Ahab and chasing the whale of how do we do things bigger and better than everybody else. That's why I've always argued for a big stadium fight. Give me the Anthony Joshua UK 90,000 experience. Give me Allegiant Stadium, right? Like I've been saying, like give me Ngannou, John Jones at Allegiant Stadium. Let's just blow it out WrestleMania style with the with the fireworks and all that. Like give me everything. They're going to do that, or they have the opportunity to do that here with the Sphere. I still have questions, even though we were in there and saw, almost a life-altering entertainment experience, how that will translate in a combat sports sense. I do think in arena, it will be crazy and unique just because of the size of how big you're going to see the fighters on the screen and how they manipulate that and show that at times. It's going to be just interesting and worth it if you can get in there and you can afford it. I don't know on TV how they're fully going to capture that. I mean, they're probably going to have a lot of drones or cranes or something to be able to kind of somehow capture the enormity of that experience. But I guess, you know what, I am down for going for it and going big. Are they kind of sacrificing some of the other cards around them by loading up 300 and now loading up this one? I mean, you can make that argument when they're already spread thin. But Luke, you heard Dana say where it sounded for a minute like they were going to go away from the Noche Mexican theme. Now they seem to be back for it for September at the Sphere. So let's just say, what's a triple header of above the marquee fights that belong here? I think we have to put Shevchenko Grasso 3 in that because they've done the tough. It feels like we're angled toward that. What would be the two support bouts that would make the most sense if you're keeping in mind Mexican heritage and what the Sphere could mean to like a crazy action fight?
I don't think it's a good idea to put a Spaniard on a pro Mexican card. I realize he's like an adopted Spaniard, but nevertheless, it's just really weird to be like, hey, it's Mexican Independence Day. Yeah, independence from whom? Oh, right. We should probably not put the Spanish guy on there, but I do want to see that fight. And I want to see that fight in the Sphere. I'm talking about Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway for the 145 title.
Can you just put that in Spain? I mean, seriously, let's just go to Spain with that shit,
So did you see Chandler tweeted yesterday, like, okay, so the phonetic alphabet of Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, the whole bit that you have to learn it in the military. He tweeted, I think, Bravo, Mike, Foxtrot, which would be the phonetic alphabet for BMF.
Yes.
So what would that mean? Let me just put this out there. Would you accept Chandler Holloway for the BMF title at 155 at the Sphere?
Well, while I would accept that fight under literally any circumstance, right? Especially UFC 303, I would have been more than fine with that replacing. I even liked Alexander Volkanovski, by the way, picking up the phone and saying, I'll fight Chandler last minute if you need me at 303. We can argue that separately. But Luke, I do feel like the Holloway versus this potential overnight sensation superstar that's ready right now to burst through your screen, Ilia Topuria, I just feel like that fight is such a no-brainer to make it an event itself, right? Like I'm saying, do it in Spain, but do it big somewhere. Do it in Aloha Stadium. Do it freaking somewhere where it matters. I don't know if you need to put that on the mountain that is the Sphere, because the Sphere is going to sell itself just for the uniqueness of it. I don't know if you have to ruin such a can't-miss title fight by taking Max and putting him over there. Can't we just do Chandler versus Gaethje 2 or 3? Where are we at in that rivalry?
I don't know. If I'm Gaethje, I'm taking some time off. I mean, that was
Chandler Poirier in the Sphere.
It's not like I hate that fight. I like that fight. I just don't know if I need to see that fight. I mean, I guess if you did Chandler versus Holloway, you could conceivably just run back Volk and Topuria. That's a risky fight for Volk to run right back, but this is.
So you're saying if you're removing Max from the Ilya fight, then you would only do that because you're giving Volkanovski the respect of former champion. You get a second chance to regain your belt.
I'm just saying, I don't know what Chandler's cryptic ass tweet. I mean, it could be nothing. It could have just been like he felt, he's out there. My man's out there like sharing videos where he's just like a walking Hallmark card. Like, you got to really believe in the word and the power of your soul. It's like, oh my God, you are depressed. So I don't know what they're going to do. And I'm not Mexican. I can't legislate these issues. I don't know how
you're
they're
damn near Colombian, Luke. At least you're damn near an eighth.
Nah, they call me gringo when I'm down there. Don't think that they don't. And they do it to my face, which I fucking hate because it's a racist word. They'll say it's not racist. It is. But what I'm trying to point out to you, BC, is someone was asking me this, like, what's the right fight for the Sphere? And in terms of what kind of fight or what kind of star power can you book to best make use of the facility? I don't fucking know. I don't know. My only thought is you just make it as good as you can, as action-oriented as you can. If it's got a Mexican theme, you put Raul Rosas on there. You put, Grasso on there. While you see Moicano just killing him, he's like, my brother. That's the ugliest man I've ever seen. I'm like, that's what I say in the mirror every morning. That's really sounds very similar.
I was going to ask you what you thought about Volkanovski offering himself to Chandler. Bad idea?
Terrible idea. Terrible idea. It's not even that I don't want to see the fight in a general sense or that I don't think Volk could win. I think he could. It's like, dude, you just got brutally knocked out fucking twice. Like, be strategic.
That's why I don't want to see him against Topuria. Let's be honest. I don't think you deserve the Topuria rematch when you were already coming off a loss. I get it. Special circumstance with Makhachev.
And 155.
You were already coming off a devastating loss, and then you suffer a one-sided devastating loss. I don't, not with Max ready, not with where we're at. Come on.
All right. That's the Sphere. Dana White also turned his attention to John Jones and Francis Ngannou. Let's see what he had to say.
Do you regret how things played out with Francis? Are you disappointed with how that played out, Dana?
No, because we did everything in our power to try to make that John Jones fight, and it is what it is.
Do you believe John Jones was afraid of Francis?
Not only is John Jones not afraid of Francis, John Jones is the baddest fighter to ever live in any combat sport. If you look at John Jones is undefeated in the UFC. He's got one loss on his record. He lost to Steve Mazzagatti. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
He's the worst referee to ever fucking ref any fight. Never lost, and he went through murderer's row.
Yeah.
Then he goes out for 3 years, comes back, and beats Cyril Gane like that easily. In my opinion, he does the same thing to Francis.
What?
100% does the same thing to Francis. Francis didn't want to fight John Jones. There's nothing for him to prove now. He already moved up to heavyweight and walked through
Cyril Gane. I mean,
Francis Ngannou barely made it through Cyril Gane.
Yeah.
If Cyril Gane doesn't go for that submission,
right,
Cyril Gane wins that fight. Mm-hmm. John Jones walked through him.
Okay, couple of responses, BC, if I can. First of all, Francis Ngannou had basically a torn ACL heading into the Gane fight and still fucking managed to win, which is
still out wrestled the guy. He never wrestled for 1 second of his life before that.
Also,
fight.
Dana, I mean, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, but I don't run the UFC. How does he still not know how to pronounce Francis Ngannou? Ngannou?
Look, there's so many errors in that 2-minute rant. It's just ridiculous.
Let me play this. Now, granted, this was from this. I just played you the Club Shay Shay clip. This one I'm about to show you is after Ngannou knocked out Miocic in their rematch. But just take a look at this real quick.
Right now, and John came out, tweeted, said, "Show me the money." What appeals to you most? Because it seems like that would be an amazing super fight.
If I'm John Jones and I'm home watching this fight, I start moving to 85.
BC, your reaction.
Well, Luke, I was so much fatter then. I'm thinner than that now. Dana would probably say, to quote Bob Dylan.
Well, good for him, by the way. He seems to have taken his health seriously, and it shows up. You can see there's a big difference.
I'm taking my health seriously. You're taking your health kind of seriously, right?
I still vape
a little bit,
but yes, I'm lifting in the front yard a lot these days. Yeah.
I mean, you got some rock piles forming there, Luke. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Enough of that weirdness. Yeah, I got a lot of issues with everything he said, with the reframing that Francis never wanted the fight, with the framing that he's done routinely in this podcast circuit the last couple months of like, John not only came back after 3 years, which he did, and I'm not going to take that away from him, but this guy, John, who you will regularly shit on when you need to, when you need that public contractual leverage against John. But now suddenly it's like, man, there's never been a badder guy in the history. Look, John Jones is my GOAT. I'm not going to argue that. But to reframe the idea that Cyril Gane was the recognized heavyweight champion entering that fight, he was coming off a big loss, Luke, to Francis. And then he laid a worse egg in the center of that cage and got taken down against the cage wall and submitted in no time. John doesn't take away from John being 2-division champion. Now, it would take away, in my opinion, if John then follows that up 2 years later with one Stipe win and then walks away for good. Let's hope not. Let's hope not in that regard. But nothing about this is accurate. But, Luke, because we do want to be fair, I got to ask you an important question here. In the Dana versus Francis timeline, because Francis appears now to be outright effing PFL and just being like, you know what?
Oh, yeah.
I'm back in camp, but I'm back in camp for professional boxing.
Yeah.
Look, they gave PFL, that smart cage gave Francis the world. He's got a seat on the board. He's ownership in PFL Africa. He's got this contract that allows him to go anywhere. Look, we're so happy Francis got the bag. He earned it. But Luke, could you argue that they gave him the world and now he's shitting on them? Does that make any part of what Dana says about Francis not wanting the fight true? Does that change history at all, what Francis is doing to the PFL right now?
I don't think so. I mean, the issue with, like, I don't understand the connection. It's like Francis didn't want to fight.
Here's the
John.
connection.
Okay.
If you're going, I think what Dana's saying when he says Francis doesn't want to fight is that we offered heavyweight record money, which they did for one fight to Francis. That's what you hear, that they offered what, 8 or 10 million to fight John.
Closer to 10 for the one. It would drop off significantly thereafter. But
it would drop off significantly, and he'd be tied up for another 8 fights and would never get what he was looking for, the freedom to do what he wants. Okay. So he said no. But there are people who still argue, look, if he really wanted to fight John and be recognized as the greatest heavyweight of this era, he could have taken it and he would have been well paid for it. Based on that information mixed with how he's kind of telling PFL, hey, fuck off, maybe next year. Is any part of Dana's argument stronger because of that?
I don't think so. Hard to know. We're not there in the room, and so you can make of that what you want. Again, they were willing to pay a lot of money for the John Jones fight, and that should be recognized. However, I'm going to say a couple of things. I don't think there's much of a connection between him not fighting in PFL and then proving Dana right, because the reality is, who the fuck is he going to fight in PFL? If Francis fights in PFL, given the current state of the roster, which could change between now and the end of the year, but as I speak to you now on the 21st of June, 2024, if Francis fought in the PFL, it would be as charity to them. He's not in the business of charity. This is not the charity business. He'd be doing them a solid. And I'm sure he'd get paid, well for his efforts, but there's nobody there for him to maximize how much money he could make. Now, I don't know who his boxing third fight against, who that would be. Maybe they're going to roll out the fucking walking corpse of Deontay Wilder or something. I don't know. But if it's at all a recognizable name, you can understand why he went that direction versus the other. John is a credible opponent with a significant potential for monetary gain. PFL has nothing like that. So I'm a little bit hesitant to say that there's a connection between them. Also, I just want to make this point very, very clear. The UFC and Dana White and anybody else, they do not have to do anything that they don't want to. And of course they won't. They have all the leverage and that will be just what it is. But they cannot claim, hey, that fight is lost forever. It's not lost even a little bit. We don't have to speculate about what would happen. The fight can be made tomorrow. And I know what everybody says, oh, why would they give shine to the PFL? And it's like, guys, if you're saying that one promoter is so big that they no longer have an incentive to make arguably the biggest heavyweight fight that can be made in the entire sport, you're admitting that the market is inherently fucking warped. You're admitting that right up front. Also, it is entirely elective. There's nothing preventing them. They're both PFL and UFC are signed to ESPN. ESPN Plus would get the pay-per-view. You know that already. And you're like, well, if they didn't do it with him under the banner, why would they do it outside? And it's like, because it would make a shit ton of money and everyone would be happy. The only people that would be unhappy are not the fans, not the sport, not the fighters, just the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
I mean, PFL will be happy because they'd be getting paid millions for it.
Right. But why are we as customers supposed to give a fuck about that?
Right.
I just don't understand that. So like this idea, like, well, I guess we'll never know. We could literally sign that. I mean, not you and I, but the community. This fight is available. It is literally
let's not
available.
Leave out that John sat out for 3 years. Let's not leave that out.
So I just don't understand when people are saying things like, well, I guess we'll never know. Why? Oh, he's not assigned to the UFC anymore.
Now,
so fucking what?
Do you want Shannon Sharpe to challenge him in that regard? I mean, I didn't feel like this felt like an infomercial large.
I mean, this is the state of media all the time. It's just infotainment all the time. Like the reality is, I don't think folks who are young just don't appreciate this because they never saw anything different. But we did grow up, and I know it sounds so old man, but just hear me for just a second. We grew up in an era where the journalism that was produced was separate from the monetary considerations that produced it. Not entirely, but there was a big firewall. They would sell classify ads and other things. And then Craigslist came along and everyone knows the story. And so now the content you produce, it is the number one imperative. And number two is a distant number two is, to what extent can this content get attention and notoriety and therefore make itself monetized? That's the only consideration. And so as a consequence, if you're a Shannon Sharpe, if you're anybody, what incentive do you have to push somebody to get them to answer difficult questions if the response is going to be they'll never show up again, it'll lead to bad relationships, blah, blah, blah. They literally have completely rooted out. They have unmoored journalism from its entire purpose. And then they just use the showmanship part of it as like the only thing that is left that has any value. It is absolutely destroyed media. I've said this before, man. The media is now better about giving people more of what they actually will react to. And it has done nothing except make everyone more miserable in the process.
Right,
not great.
It's one thing to say the old journalism MMA guard, which we are both in age and experience, that you guys are just unhappy because the fighters have their own ability to make their own money in their own mouthpiece.
I never liked talking to them to begin with.
or that the influencers have come in and taken your job and they're doing a new, better job. But then when you find out, I saw that Nina Drama was defending herself from other allegations on Twitter, and she came back and was sort of boasting and said, well, the UFC just signed me for an additional 2-year deal, which tends to suggest they re-signed her from the original 2-year deal. I never guessed that she was a plant where she was literally signed by the company and paid directly by the company to do those interviews. I thought she had sort of built her own army. But if that's the truth, Luke, and that's where this really is heading or is already at, then good luck to anybody that wants to actually be an MMA journalist. I mean, it's one thing to fight off that one-eyed guy coming at you like Ariel had to do, but where we're at with this too, it's like, man, UFC's not just planting people, they're actually paying and hiring them and planting them. That does go another level, Luke, in this.
I know that some fans care. I know that matters, but like most people don't seem to care. It's like, dude, I cannot believe there are people out there that are like, the elites are out there and they're fucking taking advantage of us. And yet they cheerlead an entire media ecosystem that is designed by the powerful to make themselves look good.
Sure.
How can you reconcile those two worldviews? How can you be someone who is so concerned about what elites are doing to us and then cheerlead media that entrenches that power? You're a fucking loser. Okay, let's put that aside for just a second. Putting that down, BC, this last clip, I got to take us off. Give me 1 second. It's the boxing one. This is the crown jewel clip. So give me just a second. I'm going to take us off the screen. I'm going to play the clip, and then we're going to react to it. So give me just a second here. Let me pull the background. I got to change the background. All right, we're going to do this one, and then I'm going to pull you off. Then I'm going to play it. All right, don't go anywhere. All right, let's do this.
But obviously, I think some of the fighters says, considering what's at stake, I think the pay should be more.
Nobody really knows how much a lot of these guys make. And guess what? These guys don't want you to know how much they make either.
Right.
There's a narrative from people that don't like the UFC,
Right.
don't like me, or whatever it might be. And these guys don't know what these guys really make. And the other thing is that the money is spread out from the top to the bottom. We have guys who would be considered journeymen in boxing who've made millions of dollars. If you don't like the way that it's run here, there's no barrier to entry. Start your own mixed martial arts organization and you pay the guys whatever you think you want to.
Right.
It's been done by many, many powerful, rich, smart businessmen, and they don't succeed.
No.
I've built a business that has lasted, that has changed many people's lives.
Correct.
Most of this narrative is by scumbag reporters who have never built anything in their life. When you look at what boxing did, everybody's like, oh, boxing, every fucking event that they put on, it's a going out of business sale. Let's grab as much money as we can from everybody. We don't care if the event is good. We don't care if the people at home enjoy what they saw. They don't care if the people who came and bought tickets liked it. We just want to grab as much money as we can. They never reinvested in the sport. Tell me a sport or any business ever in the history of the world that has probably made trillions of dollars in revenue. And at the end of the day, there's nothing there. That's boxing. We built a brand that fans believe in and trust, and everybody is taken care of from the top to the bottom. Professional sports isn't a job. It's an opportunity. I don't know if you see people that are like, oh, I want to go into boxing. I think that boxing calls out a lot of our guys because they know that's where the money is, right? Because most of the time, most of these guys in boxing will say, well, I want 40 million for that. Well, how does that fucking make sense? Boxing got so fucked up that nobody could actually make a living out of it, and people couldn't, that Saudi Arabia had to take it over. A group of people that have so much money, they don't care whether they make or lose money. That's how fucked up boxing got, that's where that had to go. That's why this guy is making all these fights that he's making right now. Like Tyson Fury versus Usyk, that's a fight that should have happened. It took Turkey to make that fight because they have unlimited funds, and whether they make money or don't,
They don't care.
They don't care. I just saw that because of piracy, that fight lost like $100 million or something like that, or 20 to 100 million. I don't know what the number was, but that's what you need for boxing. I do give a shit whether I lose money or not. We built a sustainable business that can continue to go on and continue to give opportunities to lots of different people from all over the world.
All right, so let me change the background here if I can, BC. Yes, there we are. Okay, very good. Sorry, I had to do that because the other one was it's a long story. All right.
You did well, Luke. You did very well.
Hey, I'm out here just fucking raw dogging.
You weren't, you weren't Hasselhoff with the drunk sandwich. You were Hasselhoff on the Berlin Wall fighting for freedom. Okay, yeah, damn right.
Okay, I mean, there's just so many things to react to here.
Please,
BC.
can you react to just like
Oh my god, dude.
I mean, this is like if you knew nothing about boxing, he just presented like 9 outright opposite lies in a row.
Dude, so little of that is true. They did build a sustainable business. That is true. And they are very, very good at what they do. Like this is not a claim that like UFC is bad at what they do. They are good at what they do. They've got Harvard MBAs in that war room of theirs, not the literal one, but I mean like in the executive team, and these guys know what they're up to. So it's not that they're not competent. It's not that they haven't built a sustainable business. They absolutely have. I can't even begin to describe how insane that clip is. First, we don't know what these guys make. Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Your company literally just settled for hundreds of millions of dollars a class action lawsuit from former fighters, and part of the way in which damages are going to be assessed and then handed out is because all of the money that UFC has made and all of the documents, they turned it into the court. And as a consequence, from basically 2010 on up, we know exactly what these fucking guys have made. Also, on top of it, we have also seen through discovery process documents and sales decks, essentially, that the company had made indicating their plans to keep fighter compensation at or below 20% in perpetuity. So this idea, like, no one knows what these guys makes. Yes, the fuck we do. And the reason why we do is because you told the court exactly what they fucking make.
That's so hilariously wrong because of the court element. But also, Luke, it proves me right, by the way, because what he's basically saying is, shut up. You don't know the actual truth. And what the real truth is, it's a bunch of paper Nelk boy bags that has gone out consistently off the books as rewards. Luke, you can tell me I'm crazy. Why would they risk that, Luke? Yeah, I think he's also showing you that he doesn't
that's
know
not at
anything.
all what he's saying. In fact, the way in which the fighter compensation will work for that 335 million
I know.
is it is everything, including show, win, side letters, locker room bonuses, non-disclosed discretionary money. All of that gets added up, and then 23% of it is then handed back to the fighter. So that's not
Right.
that's not he's not in any way justifying it. What he's doing is banking on the ignorance of the average viewer to be like, oh,
No,
that
he's doing
makes
both.
Because
He's doing
dude,
both.
Here's
One, banking on the ignorance by telling something that's wrong when you actually can go to the court filings and find the truth.
Yes.
But on top of that, I think he's also potentially exonerating himself by leaning so hard into the arrogant motherfuckers. These guys don't know what they're talking about. If they actually knew how much these guys were really making, which suggests, Luke, that there's a lot of puffed up paper bags back there. So I'm saying he's doing two wrongs in one right here.
That's all included in the okay, never mind. I can't get back into it. I'm just trying to point out, BC, and I think you can appreciate this. What's kind of undergirding all of this is boxing has gotten a bad reputation, and very deserved, over the last 30 years or so, and longer than that, but certainly in the last 30 years, about sort of being an avatar for sports corruption and dysfunction. Like, you just kind of use boxing as a shorthand for that. But when you actually begin to investigate some of the claims that go against boxing, some of them are very true. For example, the sanctioning bodies are a fucking joke, and they're actually the biggest problem, I would argue, in the entire sport. They are horrendous for the sport, and it causes so many problems. But some of the other claims are absurd. Like when you say, like, oh, other businessmen have tried to go into MMA and they can't make money. Yeah, because nobody can defeat an entrenched monopoly. That is why.
Right. You've built the walls illegally so high up from the standpoint of a monopoly that there's never a barrier to entry. You would need literally a Saudi Arabia. The people that you are using to try to make fun of boxing is saying boxing's so broken, only Saudi Arabia, by being so willing to lose money, can do it. Now, that's not untrue to some degree, but let's not forget that Dana's been trying to get into boxing for years with Zuffa Boxing and couldn't get over the actual barriers to entry because no one wanted to work with him because he thought he could walk right in and create his own boxing monopoly within there. Now, maybe Turkey can do it because he's willing to lose more money. That's a separate conversation.
Yes.
But to say things like, well, look at all the boxers are doing is calling us out. What? The second that Usman became pound for pound king, he called out Canelo. The second that Sean O'Malley became bantamweight champion, he called out, Ryan Garcia or whatever boxer of that moment. No, it's completely backwards because your guys can't make what they can make in boxing. Now, you can only make that much in boxing, in my opinion, because the system's broken and it's Wild West, where it is the ultimate capitalistic market of prize fighting. There's no question. But outside of what he said about Saudi Arabia's willingness to lose money, which is true,
that's true.
There wasn't much that was accurate in that at all. And the thing that also bugged me was to frame boxing when right now it's on the verge of going through an absolute renaissance. If not, it's already started. To claim that it's still a nightly going out of business sale and sort of try to play up the greed of those boxing promoters. Be careful of the glass house of the UFC right now, which offers fans thousands of dollar opportunities to get their name written in the octagon circle, which they'll sell every inch of that octagon out, which, when you're going to be when you're to the point where they are literally testing the patience of the market by jacking up ticket prices and trying to get every single dollar possible every single night. It's glass houses is shit to sit there and then toss it back.
Bob Arum explained this beautifully. Everyone thinks that there's MMA fans, not all of them, but many of them have been convinced that there are only 4 guys in Las Vegas: Hunter Campbell, Dana White, Sean Shelby, and Mick Maynard. That there are 4 guys in Las Vegas who can promote MMA effectively in the entire world. And that is it. Dude, you have to the camera's already on me. Listen to me. You have to be a fucking moron to believe something so obviously fucking stupid. In boxing, Dana White said that no one can make money because there's constant infighting and blah, blah, blah. When it's the exact opposite. No one can make money in MMA except for the UFC. They make more than 90 cents of every dollar generated in the industry, so much so that no one else can make money. I keep saying this. Top Rank makes money. PBC makes money. Golden Boy makes money. And I can go on down the list. Matchroom makes money. They can, Oscar de la Hoya makes money promoting boxing. He makes money by promoting boxing. It's actually much more of a shared thing. And Bob Arum was very right to understand it. He's like, are the UFC good at what they do? There's no question. There's no question that they're good at what they do. They deserve to be rich. No question about that either. It's not a question of like, are they just complete pretenders? No one's arguing they're pretenders. What we're saying, though, is in that situation where in boxing, because of the regulatory mechanisms that are in place, because of the legal rules that are in place, the margins go 80% to the fighter, 20% to the promoter, which means they're going to have obviously some smaller scale ambitions. In the UFC, it's reversed because it's a unregulated system. The government has never really put the same rules on it that they would for boxing. If they did, it'd be a very, very different thing. Also, one, the judge noted explicitly in 3 different occasions and different ways in which there are barriers to entry. And you know it to be true because Saudi Arabia could give PFL all the money in the world and they wouldn't be able to compete. That's how you know there are barriers to entry. And lastly, the UFC was chided as part of this court case for paying themselves back rather than putting the money back to the fighters or for something else. Now, obviously, they're putting a bunch of money into shows like The Sphere, and they put a bunch of money into these performance institutes. And that's great. That's amazing.
That is great.
They deserve credit for all of that. I'm going to give them credit because they have really primed the pump in Mexican MMA to make it what it is, and they deserve credit for that. But they have also taken all that money and enriched themselves in the process. And so criticizing boxing promoters for being too focused on the money in a world where you operate in a relative to boxing, in a, again, relative to boxing, an unregulated marketplace where the fighters have no union and no federal regulation to protect them or to spread the market apart is shocking. It is shocking to hear something like that. Jesus
I mean, it goes
Christ.
deeper. If you compare boxing's disorganization now to other periods where it felt like it was, a time of growth and glory, those periods also align with times where the mafia completely owned the sport and was running it from a promoter standpoint and even fixing fights, or even when like Don King was in full control and was stealing from fighters left and right, where yes, big fights got made, but it got made sort of under the auspices of an outright monopoly or a threat of one, where it's like, again, congrats on what you've built, but look at the way you built it. You dodged a major bullet with that antitrust lawsuit. And it seems like you want to get into boxing too. So rather than rip on it, dump the slap BS, get into boxing, create a second home for all the fighters who built their name under your banner anyway. I mean, you can hire me. I'll help you out. I'll join the war room, Luke. Okay. Me, Mick, Sean, and Dana. I mean, that's a brat pack waiting to happen, right?
I will say this. The one thing that like folks have never seen another competent MMA, like current fans, they didn't see Strikeforce, which I know Bellator was not great, but Strikeforce really was. Strikeforce was very good. And to watch Pride, people have like never seen like competent high level MMA promotion. So they think that like, oh, everyone else tried and they just weren't as good at it. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, guys, you don't have to be that great at it to actually make some money in the sport. You just have to have access to, again, we've been over these conversations a million times, but it just blows my fucking mind about this. Anyway, but there was no pushback on it. So I saw people being like, yeah, Dana's cooking. And I'm like, people just love to bash boxing and they know all about what's happening.
There was that one other video where Shannon Sharpe was like, man, you don't give a damn about, what you say if it hurts people's feelings. Dana's like, yeah, you're right. It's a lot like the gay community. They had to stay quiet for so many decades and now they just, get to come out and show who they really are. That's like me. And I was just like, I don't know. I didn't see that comparison coming, but I guess it's right, Dana.
He was making the comparison between himself being who he is and civil rights progress towards gays.
Yes, because he was saying, he's chosen to live his life unapologetically and just be his real self. Hey, it's working for him, Luke,
He is rich. I mean, there's no denying that. They've done well for themselves indeed. All right, BC. Last but not least, do I have I'm trying to just fucking figure this out here in real time.
Yeah, your producer credits really coming in handy.
Yeah,
right
finally, you fucking recognize my greatness with producer credits. BC, let's talk about UFC Saudi Arabia. We kind of started the show talking about how understandably losing Khamzat was a big blow to this card. That being said, I got to tell you, is it what it once was? No, it's not that. I'm still pretty excited about it. I think there are still some pretty significant stakes. I think I've seen this, the dismissiveness around the threat of Aliskerov, I think is really stupid. I don't really understand that. I will say I had like an A- kind of feel about it. I'm closer to a B, maybe B+.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot. There are matchups in here that really scream action potential, even if they don't necessarily hold a huge candle toward title contention within their own division. One like Johnny Walker versus Ozdemir fits that perfectly. So there's a lot of those type of fights where you may just get surprised someone may break through in such incredible way. But Luke, I want to ask you this question regarding the changes at the top, because to add to the conversation that has been Chimaev getting ill, all the questions about his own future, but now you're putting in Aliskerov, which changes the conversation for Saturday's main event in such a fun way because of the unknown. It's rare that you get a guy who to make the leap to true title contention before he's fully proved it. So that's exciting alone. But then we find out that Bo Nickel was out on a hunting trip in Montana, received multiple calls to a phone that was turned off because he was, out of pocket deep in the wilderness. Luke, there was potential there that they were calling him to replace Chimaev and fight Robert Whittaker, which would have only doubled and tripled down on the key narrative coming out of this main event of, is Aliskerov ready? Can he cut the line here? How do you order the three in the main events on your interest level between Chimaev, Aliskerov, and Bo Nickel?
The Bo Nickel one would have clearly been pretty big and pretty interesting for, I think, the sport. I can't deny that. I was high on Bo Nickel coming out of Contender Series and then the Pickett fight and then his last one against Brundage. I'm kind of slow. I've slowed my roll a little bit. So I will be honest. I can recognize that the Bo Nickel quotient of the guy he's become and the sort of the star factor involved would make it bigger, but I'm actually more excited for Aliskerov. So obviously Khamzat would have been 1. I'd put Aliskerov 2, and then I'd put Bo Nickel 3. Your mileage may vary, certainly, but I like this Aliskerov fight. Can I tell you why?
Please.
All right. So first of all, on some level, it's actually pretty simple to understand. It's striker versus grappler. Now, Aliskerov can obviously strike, so I'm grossly oversimplifying it, but it makes the stakes somewhat straightforward. It's like the longer it goes on the feet, I don't know how much that's going to favor Aliskerov. So it kind of simplifies the contest to a degree. That's one. I think 2, the stakes are fucking enormous. Aliskerov is not even ranked. Robert Whittaker is looking for another title shot. I mean, 0 margin for error on this one. If you lose to a guy that's not even ranked, not because he's not good, but he's only got 3 fights, and the last 2 were against, all 3 were against donks, basically. That's not quite true, but you get the idea. No noteworthy big wins on there. He has no signature UFC win at all. It would be catastrophic for Robert Whittaker's career. Not that I'm wishing it on him. By contrast, BC, there's a lot of consternation about, is he getting his title shot against DDP, which I understand. But if Whittaker wins, and I think does, staying on this card after Khamzat fell out, he's doing him a solid. You know what I mean? If he gets a big dominant win and he stayed on this card, obviously, to save him, and he really does an amazing call out, I'm not saying that they'll sub in Izzy, but it might put him ahead of any kind of potential Sean Strickland rematch that's also in the queue, because Strickland obviously has history with DDP and Izzy, and now those are big fights. But Whittaker, I think, could do himself a huge favor here. So it's a fight where the stakes are clear. The fault lines in the fight itself are clear, and I think Aliskerov is being criminally underrated about what kind of threat he poses.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you look at the 2 wins, though, Luke, what's the percentage that it's fool's gold? I mean, even that Phil Hawes fight, which was Aliskerov's UFC debut, he was getting pieced up, calf kicks, punches, not pieced up where he's getting hurt.
Pieced up is a strong word.
Okay, he was getting outpointed for a certain stretch, and then he put a couple punches together, and then he landed a freaking hammer from out of nowhere that knocked Phil Hawes out cold. So when you see that, when you see the record, when you see how he's bounced back from the only career defeat against Khamzat Chimaev, ironically, where he got brutally brutalized by a right uppercut and knocked out cold. Like, what is the scare potential that, like, there's levels to this game, kid? You can do this up against, the C plus B plus guys. Whittaker is, what we got here. He's the ultimate top level, title level, gatekeeper in this regard as the veteran former champion. It's is he going to be able to frame it up? Now, I don't even want to comment on that question that I asked you, because I was the guy who told you that DDP had no path to victory against Robert Whittaker under any circumstance.
Yeah, same.
I really thought that gap was so large. Aliskerov seems to be more dangerous than we thought DDP was. But should we be nervous about the idea that he is jumping from unranked to the very deepest end of the pool?
I think that this fight still favors Robert Whittaker. I mean, I just want to be very clear about that. And it's striker versus grappler. Again, that's not entirely true. In fact, the reason why it's not entirely true is you go back to the Phil Hawes fight. People are like, oh, Aliskerov was getting pieced up. Go back and look very closely. What do you notice he finishes him off with? It's a 1-2. He had been landing that 1-2 previously in the fight, was just a little bit off, didn't quite get it. He's in the 1-2, by the way, that jab cross. He is so good about setting it up. He lands it on numerous opponents through the course of his career. That's one of his money. It's a short combination, but that's one of his money punches and money combinations. And that is why he was able to get the job done. So people being like, oh, he got pieced up. He was taking some shots, and Phil Hawes had come back from Thailand from that fight and was looking pretty great. But Aliskerov stuck to his game plan, stuck to his strengths, and finished him off inside the first round. In fact, if you count the Contender Series win, it's 3 UFC fights and all 3 in the first round, all 3 via finish, obviously. So something to keep in mind there. But this one's going to be interesting, BC. It's southpaw versus orthodox, so it's going to be open stance, and I really think it's just going to be a function of to what extent he can get the takedown. I do think Aliskerov can hold his own on the feet. I'm skeptical he can put it on Whittaker unless there's like a big punch or he's much better than I think. Again, we don't know. We shall see. I tend to think it's to what extent he can get the takedown going or the clinch kind of really initiated. And I was going back and looking at like the last few times that Whittaker was taken down. Like you go at like the 4th round of the Gastelum fight, he gets taken down off like I think a single that got transitioned to a double, but Whittaker gets right up. I mean, right fucking up. It was just enough to count the takedown, and then that's it. There was no offense behind it. And then you go and look at some of the Romero ones. That's a very different takedown style. It doesn't really count. You go to the DDP one. DDP was trying to go for a head toss, couldn't get it, so then just took him backwards that same direction and then immediately kind of moved into a passing situation. And he's got strong situation on top. So I'm thinking, man, if Aliskerov can get the clinch, get an underhook, something like that, or go to the, because your open stance, you can go and reach for that front single a little bit more easily with something like that. That I think is going to be where this fight is won and lost, because a guy like Whittaker, assuming the cage is one of those bigger cages, is going to be able to like snipe him coming in, hit a shot and exit. It's really going to come down to how Aliskerov can get his hands on him and if he can keep him on the ground thereafter. It's a really fun challenge. By the way, Aliskerov averaging through UFC 2.33 takedowns per 15 minutes, so almost good for one a round. Let's see how impactful that ends up being.
DraftKings at this moment, Luke, for the main event on Saturday afternoon on East Coast time. I believe it's a 3 p.m. Eastern card main start. Ikram Aliskerov plus 136, your underdog, minus 162 Robert Whittaker. So, Luke, Robert Whittaker at 33 is in that interesting spot where it can be feast or famine. Let me explain. It's sort of, tell me if I'm wrong, he's in a spot right now where Max kind of was entering the Justin Gaethje fight, where it's like, there is a situation where he's at an age where Whittaker could get caught with something here against Aliskerov and could have, a dismantling similar to the DDP fight. Or he could absolutely break through, maybe not as dramatically as Holloway did against Gaethje, but, think old Larry Bird in the final years with the Celtics laying on his stomach on the sideline. That dude could get up any given night and drop 40 on you and get a triple-double. So, Luke, where do we feel about where Whittaker's stock actually is? Because I could see this going both directions in that regard, where it's like the mileage is there, still young enough. When we go back to February and the fight against Paulo Costa, we certainly saw more than we liked than we didn't. Was there enough of what we didn't like to still be wary here that if this turns into a physical fight on the feet, that Aliskerov has the type of hammerage that could really cause trouble if it turns into there?
There's really no question about Whittaker's technical skill. I think there are some questions about his durability at this stage. You saw that in the DDP fight. You saw that in the first Izzy fight. I mean, these were huge shots he was taking, but And even in the Costa fight, he got rattled a little bit, and then he had amazing resolve and then recovery powers. But there's a question about that. Like, to what extent can the physicality of like a true big middleweight give him problems at age 33? And like, can he overcome that? That's really the only one that I have. Like he's got the technical ability to beat basically anyone in this division. Does he have the physical durability, the physical wherewithal generally to hold up to some of these bigger sort of like DDPs, like just this fucking tank, you know? We'll see if Aliskerov is something similar or not, but that's kind of where that's the only real question I have left for him at 33. He can beat these guys. It's can he withstand these tough ass fights? A little bit different.
The odds makers certainly gave the respect ultimately in that regard to Whittaker, to Aliskerov, making him such a small underdog. Luke, are the days gone to look at Robert Whittaker as a finisher? I mean, he's such a well-rounded fighter. The durability mixed with the cardio, mixed with the IQ has long been his sort of calling card. But I've got to go back to 2017 when he head kicked Jacare Souza as the last time we saw a finish. So when you look at this advanced age of him, he still brings that completely well-rounded package and that mental assassin sort of thing. Would you like to see more offensive threat though coming out of him? Because you don't want to just be durable against these young hammers, man.
I just think we have to be realistic. I mean, would I like to see it? Of course I'd like to see it, but dude, the margin, I mean, if he loses here, I don't think, middleweight is kind of wide open. One never knows, but and especially if he let's say he gets finished, right? Let's say he gets finished. Your title hopes are fucking cooked. Probably in all likelihood, they are fucking cooked. Now, again, middleweight is a little bit more forgiving than some of the other divisions. It's not 145 or something, but he'd be in big trouble here. And so I think I'm not going to say he's going to play it safe, but he's definitely not going to take dumbass risks. He's definitely not going to really try and push it. I don't think he just has no room for error, and I think that probably more than anything I think will help define it. All right, BC, let's move this along if we can.
Well, I did want to ask you one question, storyline wise. If Ikram Aliskerov wins this, is he Poatan and Chimaev is Izzy? Is that line up with you?
I hadn't thought of it, but there could be some parallels. That's interesting. I don't know. All right, co-main event. This is a fun one. I don't think it's going to go very long. Sergey Pavlovich versus Alexander Volkov. They've joked about the sparring and how Pavlovich is obviously so heavy-handed in previous times. Obviously, you've got Pavlovich coming in off the loss to Aspinall. No shame there. Aspinall might be the best guy in the world. And then Volkov coming in on 3-fight win streak over Rosenstrike, Romanov, and then Tuivasa. BC, they're going to bang it out, are they not? They're going to be like Rocco and many of his lady friends over the course of a long and decorated career in pornography. This is just going to be a lot of banging.
They will, but here's the challenge I want to give Volkov here, because he's had a couple moments in the past, and heavyweight does give you the option of many lives because you can linger. And at 35, you could argue he might actually be in the tip-top shape of his prime when you put together the mental and physical things. I thought it was his time before, and then he got knocked out. I mean, you can argue that Derek Lewis comeback knockout was one of the big moments where I felt like Volkov was really coming on. But Luke, that's 3 straight stoppages of those names you mentioned. And I know each of those 3 names are flawed in their own design. But if you're going to crash the title picture, the time would be now. And I think the path to doing that would be a potential stoppage here of Sergey Pavlovich, which is not easy at all. But you got Pavlovich coming off the loss in the fight that could have put him into a title shot. And I think, Luke, if Volkov can get into a smart shootout against him, the kind where you are certainly leaning on your physical advantages, which is the length and the technique that Volkov brings from the kickboxing standpoint, the hard outside leg kicks. If he can set it up, make this into a bit of a technical brawl, I wonder if his path to a title shot might open up, because we don't know if John Jones is ever going to fight again after Stipe. So does Volkov suddenly become the opponent for Aspinall to fight for the full title and really prove where he's at? Now, Gon's in that conversation, but it didn't seem like Gon wanted to come back. You're not feeling what I'm putting down, man. People say, Luke, Volkov and I look alike a little bit. Maybe the Eastern European roots. Luke, I am Lithuanian.
You're like the Hasbulla version of him.
That's so insulting. I mean, I don't have the balls to get that level of back tap, but I'll tell you this, Luke. it could be his time. You don't think if he knocks out Pavlovich, first of all, do you think it's possible that he does? Can he get Sergey into that fight without getting caught himself?
Sure.
Second of all, what does he do with that win? There's nowhere else to go but call out Aspinall because John won't fight you.
Yeah, I would have to imagine he might get the loser of Blades and Aspinall if he afterwards. Like
the loser? That'd be 4 in a row by stoppage. Who else would he have to fight? Seriously.
Well, yeah, but dude, 4 in a row over 3 in a row. Yeah, at that point it would be 4. Yeah, I mean Pavlovich would be a really good win, but going back,
We can do it in Moscow. We can go down to
like
Gorky Park, the
Rosenstrike,
Scorpions
Romanov,
can
and
join.
Tuivasa. You're not going to get title shots off stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty good, but the problem for me for Volkov is I saw him fight, Minikov and
Cyril Gahn
Bellator.
knocked out Tuivasa and got a title shot directly after. Okay.
Yeah, but he's also part of an important French market. It's a little different. So it's possible. The problem is I don't buy that he can stop a wrestler enough to win a title. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like he's got really good ability, and I definitely think he can beat Pavlovich, but I think that's probably about as high as it will go. I think after that, I think the wheels start to fall off for him.
Look, I got to be honest. You're not emotionally invested in this fight at all. Just be really honest with the people.
I'm emotionally invested in the sense that I think it'll be fun. I don't think that you're looking at the next champion, whoever wins. I just don't believe that. I don't get that sense. Maybe Pavlovich down the road, but certainly not Volkov. I don't get that sense. Also, I really want to talk about this feature fight. Can we talk about Kelvin Gastelum and D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez? So Kelvin Gastelum, by the way, has a series on his YouTube channel called like Missing Weight, and he's like world's best tacos. And I was like, maybe not the time to launch that because it was supposed to be a welterweight fight. It no longer is. It's a middleweight fight. They already weighed in this morning. Obviously, Gastelum comes in having lost to Sean Brady in his last contest. He does have the win over Chris Curtis, but that came with a huge headbutt. And then he had 2 losses previous to that over Cannonier and then obviously Whittaker. So he hasn't had like a clean win since Ian Heinisch. Was that 20? I forget when that was. But you have D-Rod coming in. He did have the Austrian issue, but even USADA or whoever it was, Drug Free Sport International cleared him. But he is coming off of 2 losses to get against Magny and Gary. Also D-Rod, a little bit long in the tooth, born in 1986. BC, size it up.
I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed here because I love Kelvin Gastelum. He's become a 9 Lives fighter for me, right? He participated in the greatest night of my MMA life. Luke, he was one of the authors at UFC 236 in Atlanta back in 2019 of that, co-main main event doubleheader there that played with all of our heart and souls. And I saw that night that, when the formula is right, Gastelum can raise his game to the title level and be an absolute threat. He'll regret that takedown late, as I think we all will. But Luke, since then, man, it's been so much more famine than feast from this guy. And given that he's a 9 Lives fighter to me, meaning I'll always be talked into the idea because he's so damn young still. I think he's only 32. But I'll always be talked in the idea that if he can put his fitness first and fight in the division that's better for him, which is welterweight, and make one more run at it, I thought that's what we were doing with this. Because I think this is a very winnable fight against him. A tough fight, but a very winnable one here against D-Rod. But this shows me he's focused on just being an action fighter for the rest of his journey. And that's no harm or foul, Luke. If that's where you're at, some guys get to that point, play out the string, make some fun fights, hopefully buy the vacation home for you and your family for the future. But Luke, this doesn't show me that he's serious. And it sucks because, some guys are only great for that one night, and we've been living on Kevin Lee's potential, for a long time, Luke, and sometimes it doesn't pay off and it happens. I almost blew my wad on Amir Khan back in the day. I thought I could look through the chin issues and all of that and see that he'll put it together, Luke. They'll break your heart sometimes, but this breaks my heart, dude. And it's right when he's launching the new Average Joe Art crossover merch line. I hope Average Joe isn't the new Madden curse. Did he end MK, Luke? I'm kidding. I love Average Joe, the best in the business.
Yeah, he is watching right now because he tweeted me. So
the best in the business.
That's nice of you. That's nice of you.
You want great merch? Call Average Joe Art. There's no question. But Luke, what else are you going to say? I know you're going to say just like you did the last fight. Yeah, I'm not emotionally invested. I don't care. Maybe it'll be a fun action fight. I was hoping this would be Gastelum's announcement, Luke, but it was just a different message.
He might win this. D-Rod is old for this weight class. I'm sure he came in great shape. I'm sure he trained hard, but it's just tough to win when you're this age. We all kind of know the numbers here. Gastelum still has fast hands, but like the lack of being like, dude, like they had to move. He couldn't even make 180. Apparently, they had to put it up at 185.
Is this discipline or injury? Is it discipline or injury with him, Luke? What is it?
I don't know. I don't know
I
what
love
it is. I'm
okay,
off the Gastelum's got a future train. Like I don't think
riddle me this. Will I see an Izzy rematch? Even if it comes at the end when it's sad and they both, it's like, when porn stars come out of retirement, like even if it's that level,
maybe
sad.
on Triller or something like that, but not in the UFC. They're in vastly different places. I mean, dude, they aligned for one night of magic. I certainly agree. And Izzy went on this way, and then Gastelum went exactly the other, dude. I don't know what his situation is, but I don't think it's repairable at this point.
It's like that time they woke you up in the Marines. A train was going off in that direction, and you weren't part of it, Luke.
Yo, Thomas, you want to run a train on Osborne? I'm like, no. Sure don't.
No.
I don't want any part of that. That she is a hideous beast. All right. BC Shara Bullet is back. Shara Magomedov taking on the 3-day notice, the husband of Mackenzie Dern, Antonio Tricoli. Probably going to be a fucking beatdown. This is his Tricoli's UFC debut.
Will she be in the corner?
I don't know.
That's
Oh no, he had the no contest against Berg. Excuse me, Tricoli did. But no, I
mean, we just want to see Shara Bullet again. There's potential that he could be it's real star, especially in that area of the world, Luke. And I had seen Turki Al-Sheikh very excited about, the character that Shara Bullet plays and represents as this badass who's on the rise. He is. Luke, it's so early in his rise, though, and we don't expect to learn a ton, especially against a replacement opponent. But how high are you on this? Because I don't see the same feels, like the feels you get for Aliskerov with that Dagestan background. I mean, he's just talking to Habib the other day, strategizing for how he's going to take out Robert Whittaker.
So I mean, I think Tricoli's,
I don't see you biting down on the Shara Bullet here.
Yeah, I think Tricoli's he's probably just a sacrificial lamb here. I mean, again, they're just trying to figure out who they can fucking get to the finish line on this one. The first fight that Magomedov had in UFC was against Bruno Silva, who is a good fighter. And, Bruno Silva had some moments, but in the end, Magomedov, I think he had 2-1 striking numeric totals on him. And he really has a very dynamic style and all that. The reason it's just a personal bias because it's just the way in which I look at fight. I would rather see somebody who is a very good controlling grappler learn how to strike than a striker try to become a grappler later. Certainly you can get champions who do either of them, but I just feel like in general, I can find a higher upside on somebody who's got the grappling part down first and is learning the hands versus the opposite. And which isn't to say he's got a bad ground game. That's really not what I'm saying, but he is striker first, grappler second. And so that might be why I am personally not as high on him, but I want to be clear. I think there's going to be a fucking execution in this particular contest. And he obviously is a fighter to watch and is obviously going to be very, very good. There's no question about it. So that one is pretty straightforward.
He seems to have that character potential, Luke, to just play that like unapologetic badass. Again, the role Chimaev was supposed to play. Look, I have hope on hope that Chimaev gets a window where he gets an opportunity to show who he really is. Same hope we have for Tatiana Suarez, who seems a lot closer to that. I hope this ain't the end, Luke, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or
I don't know. I don't even want to speculate because it could be really bad, but maybe it's not. Like, I don't really know. So we'll leave it at that. All right, BC. And then a fight that is just fucking guaranteed to deliver absolute balls out weirdness. Johnny Walker at 205, obviously taking on Volkan Oezdemir. Oezdemir coming in with the win over Guskov, a loss before to Krylov, the win before that against Paul Craig. In the case of Johnny Walker, he had wins in a row over Kutelaba, Craig, and Smith. Had the weird-ass fight where they're like, where are you fighting? He's like, I'm in the desert. And they're like, they waived it. But then had the rematch against Ankalaev, and then he lost that one via stoppage, I think, in the second. So, BC, here's my sense of it. Oezdemir, fast hands, puts himself inside boxing range, likes to mix it up. He's gotten better at slipping, but can still be tagged. Walker finds weird ways to hit people, but also is very, very hittable. I'm going to favor Oezdemir, but it's so coin flip and fun.
It really is.
I bet if they fought on banana peels versus if they didn't, the fight would still look exactly the same,
I mean, this is going to be the fight where the winner, who will do so by knockout, will probably record that knockout not long after getting absolutely rocked themselves. It is inevitable. And I think the fact that Ozdemir still brings the threat of that fast counterpunch that can set you cold, I think it's going to bring out the extra weirdness in Johnny Walker, because this is not an F around fight. You will find out, Luke. But like you said, at the same time, Ozdemir, former title challenger, it can also be hit. Walker's going to have windows to land big shots, but will he try to land one of those, backflips with the dismounts, Luke? He can end up sleeping.
I don't mind the backflip and the dismount. I just really don't want him walking to the cage, gyrating and cavorting again with his crotch. I've had enough of his lip biting crotch thrust. Like,
do they accept that out there, or is that against the culture too?
I don't know. I mean, would it matter? Would he be aware? Would he care? I don't even know. I don't know. He fucked half of Scotland, apparently. I just want to remind everybody. He
at least put some respect on that piece, Luke, that he brought to the table here. He used it. He definitely used it. Yeah, look, that fight's gonna bang, and hopefully we get one of these afternoon cards that just catches fire and excitement leads into the next one. I mean, are you circling this Rinat Fakhretdinov fight against Nicholas Dalby, or not at all, Luke? Because that one could get weird too.
Fakhretdinov is pretty interesting. This is the guy that kind of ended Kevin Lee's sort of UFC comeback. He's pretty good. He did get just put to sleep by Craig Jones in a grappling match, but yeah, he's pretty good. I think the one that I got the most eye on, maybe Kyung Ho Kang and the Gafarov fight. Both of those guys I kind of like a lot. Let me look at the stats on these two. Obviously Kyung Ho Kang is a little bit more up and down, but I'm kind of interested. Oh, you know what? Gafarov has kind of looked like shit recently. Actually, he's looked like shit for a while. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong guy then. So no. Yeah, the Fakhretdinov one is interesting, and Muhammad Naimov and Felipe Lima could be a ton of fun. I don't know a ton about what Lima brings to the table, but Naimov is an interesting guy who's on a 3-fight win streak as well. So it's not, again, the card has kind of fallen apart a little bit. They held it together, and there are some gems on it, just not quite what it once was. That's all.
Tell me if you're surprised at any of these favorites here in terms of the odds from DraftKings. How about Kelvin Gastelum minus 205? Surprised?
He's beaten better fighters than D-Rod, so no, but that might be an upset special.
Sergey Pavlovich minus 245, coming off a loss against a fighter who has stopped his last 3 opponents.
I'm not surprised by that at all. No.
Okay. Ozdemir is minus 108, but Johnny Walker's minus 112. So that's just about a pick 'em.
About a pick 'em. That's about right. That's exactly what those odds should be. Yeah.
Yeah, and Shower Bullet minus 575 against Mr. What's her name? Yeah, there you go. Mackenzie Dern. Look, Mr. Mackenzie Dern.
Mr. Mackenzie Dern to you, asswipe. All right.
Indeed. Yeah.
And BC, that's it for today.
This was fun. Maybe we got to get back into this mix, Luke. We are close. We are close to rebuilding this house.
What can we tell them? What can we tell them?
That this was a fun kind of one-off. We felt we had more to give. We want to establish this as a regular thing because we want it to become a regular thing, business-wise, though, and that does matter, Luke, because we don't want to mail this in here. We have mouths to feed. We're close. We're really close for this to become in the reality, to at least get back to twice a week. We still have big hopes and dreams to get our other vehicles back out there too. Room Service Diaries on the regular, more live fight coverage, whether that be on location in a separate place or on location on the ground like we've been lately. But it's the same message of keep the faith. We're coming back. We're rising like a phoenix, Luke. Okay, we're getting up off the canvas after being knocked down, but never out. I
feel less like I got knocked down and more that I got attacked in the prison with shanks and stabbed in the shower. Yeah, that's how I mostly have been feeling the last 6 months. But maybe I'm in the sick bay.
You do look like Bruiser Brody did shortly before he got shivved in a Puerto Rico baseball stadium bathroom during that wrestling show that time and got gutted, Luke. So good luck to you, one of the fans one day.
I don't know who that gentleman is, but that sounds awful. That sounds completely fucking awful.
Ironically enough, Bruiser Brody's reputation as a businessman in the industry was similar to yours. He's like this lone wolf that would just arrive on the scene and shake things up, but then be like, no, I'm going my own way on my own terms. because I'm a Marine, baby. Sigma Pi Phi Delta Cephalus. What is it, Luke? Yeah, something like that. Amigos, bravados, blah, 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 incorporated. It's like the Colombian toast, right? I'm talking to myself. It's great, though. Hey, it was really fun to be here. Seriously.
You combined the, it's not really Colombian. It's like the Hispanic toast with Laverne and Shirley.
Yes.
And fraternity names all in one go.
It's really all the jokes I have left to give. By the way, you ever shout out Christian DeGuero's dong, Luke, putting our logo right where it matters on his? I got a lot of respect for that young man. All right?
You know, we should talk about what kind of merch we want to sell. I had someone message me yesterday because of the video I put up. We should sell MK branded kettlebells. That'd be kind of cool. We could do that. I think we should make MK condoms. What about MK condoms? What do you think?
You know how much condoms used to cost back then? I don't know. We didn't use them. Yeah. Yeah, Luke, that would be interesting. Maybe MK workout gloves for the, the real focus
for the fucking loser ass bitches.
What about
like
rolling
you.
papers would be nice. How about sunglasses that say M and K on the eyes? That'd be cool, right?
I would be down with that. I'd be down with that. You still use the jerkin solution? The fucking
I only use it for research purposes, Luke, but yes, I've still got it here.
Today's topic of research. Why does masturbation feel so good? Let me find out.
I got this Hulk Hogan doll too, Luke, but
if
I don't
you press the button
it
in the back, does he say the N-word?
That's why I really don't flaunt it as much. But I got other weird paintings, Luke. I don't, I don't really want to show this one because it's bad, but this is what my heart was speaking about recently. You know what I mean?
Wow. That is.
You offended by this? This is heavy art, Luke.
It looks like the Sphere, if I could be honest with you.
Wow. I painted it before we went there, so maybe it was, maybe I was. Maybe I was.
You see,
right?
I watched that new movie. No, it's not a Guns N' Roses affiliated thing. Civil War, the new movie, or not? It's not new, but it's new to streaming. It's okay. People are like, it's really good. It's okay.
Who's in that? Is that a Kevin Costner vehicle?
Wagner Moura, who is the guy who plays Pablo Escobar in Narcos, and then Kirsten Dunst. And by the way, it's the first time Kirsten Dunst I've not found her annoying. Usually, I find her like everyone's like, she's like the female lead in Spider-Man. I'm like, dude, Spider-Man would fuck much higher quality. I mean, Peter Parker would be Peter Porking something else. Let's just be very honest about that. She is.
Wow.
She's a snaggletooth fucking heinous zero. I mean,
wow. This did get off the rails a bit. This is Luke Thomas unplugged. Yes.
But she's actually really good.
Luke Thomas's piss come back.
Yeah.
Luke Thomas is horned up. Yeah, we should have all these spin-off segments ready.
But she was actually pretty good in this movie. I actually was like, wow, she actually did a great job. But it's about, I don't really recognize hardly anybody else in the movie.
I got a question for you.
Huh?
I got a question
for you. Jesse Plemons is in the movie.
Even though rightfully so, as soon as this fantastic July 20th Mike Perry versus Jake Paul fight was booked, a lot of people, including you, were like, oh shit, dude, Jake might have bit off more than he could chew, right? He may have picked the wrong dog to dance with. How come no one's talking about the size difference between them and the fact that Jake probably could keep this guy at the end of his jab and hold him for 8 rounds if he wanted to and win a decision just the same, probably, right?
Right? I interviewed Jake Paul. You'll probably see that interview on Monday. I asked him if there was a rematch clause, and there's not. Like they're not taking seriously the possibility that Mike Perry could win. Like they don't seem to care. So I've said this before.
Mike Perry's square up style works in bare knuckle.
Here's the thing: Mike Perry should not win that bout. He should not win in all likelihood. The thing I keep going back to that I saw in that Tommy Fury fight, as I mentioned this before, dude, like because Paul is so inexperienced and he got to this so late, he doesn't keep bearing under fire. And he really resorts to very bad habits and a very minimal version of his game when you really put some duress on him. I don't know if Perry can do that, but if he can, yes, Jake Paul is ripe for the picking under that. It's just a question of like mitigating. This is why he picks who he picks, because he picks guys who can't really take him there, So we'll see.
Sure.
All right.
Wow.
Hey, BC, this was fun. We didn't make a dime. We didn't make a penny doing this today, but we did it. We fucking did it.
Who does Mike call out if he knocks out Jake Paul?
He does a rematch. It's a rematch, right? It's a rematch. Right?
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor. Not going to happen.
It'd be the time to do it, Luke.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen though. So
you might get him in the UFC. You might get him in the BKFC.
More likely to get him at KFC,
right.
I think, honestly, at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Probably. Hey, it was great doing this with you, Luke. I hope that people enjoy it because this is, we don't open mouth kiss our listeners that often these days, so this is let me reach around. This is as close as we can get to helping out, giving back. Right.
All right. Well, let's just call it a day. That's BC. I'm LT. Hey, thanks guys for watching this sort of impromptu version of a Friday MK. Maybe we'll do it again. We hope. If you liked it, thumbs up, subscribe. Shoot us an email, morningkombat@gmail.com. Give us some feedback. We really appreciate it. We did this one for you guys.
Send us some fan subs.
And fan subs as well.
You guys send us some fan subs. We'll play them.
So this one was for you guys because we know you wanted more and we want to do more. So here we are priming the pump a little bit. All right. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. And until next time, stay frosty.